Hello all, I am Dr.V.C.Priyadharshini from SFR College Sivagasi, and I am here to present a small lecture on eco-critical study of Dilip Chitre's spelling of the banyan tree. I am an assistant professor of English and I have been in this profession for 7 years in this college. And now let us look into the details. First let us see about the author. Chitra, he is actually an Indian writer and he was born in Baroda on 17 September 1938, and his family moved to Mumbai in 1951 and he published his first collection of poems in 1960. And he moving to Mumbai is very significant because this poem is something related to that particular incident that happened while he was moving to a different place. So this detail is very important here. And then Chitre was a bilingual writer, but he mostly writes in Marathi. His famous translation work, his most famous translation was of the celebrated 17th century Marathi Bhakti poet Tukaram. And then apart from that, he is a notable bilingual writer, and he writes in Marathi as well as in English. He is also a teacher, he is a painter, he is a filmmaker and a magazine columnist, and he belonged to the Indian modernism and postmodernism movement. And most important influences behind the famous, he is known for this little magazine movement which was like famous during the 60s in Marathi. And this is about him. And moving to the text, this is the poem, The Felling of the Banyan Tree. The tenants vacated. Let us have a small reading for us to understand the text properly, and then we will get into the summary and then the analysis, and then we will see why this text is an eco-critical, like we can see this text in an eco-critical perspective. So text. The tenants vacated. As per the landlord father's order, the banyan tree which stood over higher than the house was chopped off, and it took time in hewing and axing away the mighty tree of a sturdy growth with a bigger circumference. The bigger circumference is important here because it denotes the age of the banyan tree. The banyan tree standing in witness to an age gone by, the centuries old banyan tree, but the grandmother would have objected to its cutting, but it was before moving out to Bombay finally from Baroda. When the tree was being cut, sawed and hewn by woodcutters and carpenters, he watched it in horror. A crime it seemed to be, a butcher, a massacre it seemed to be, in viewing the great tree being felled with a stroke of the axe, chopped off and pulled down. The words that he uses here are very important: chopped off, pulled down. It shows and then you have another word here, butchering, which again through which the writer kind of tells you that he treats the tree more like a person. Okay, that's what we have to observe here. Now this is the text. It has only 3 stanzas, and this is a poem. And then moving on to the summary. It is autobiographical, of course. When we saw about the author itself, I gave you details about it. It is an autobiographical text. The poet begins the poem with an incident where his father was informed his tenants to vacate their houses so they could proceed with the course of demolition. They had to demolish the house. Along with that, the tree has to be cut off. That's the plan. All of the houses except for the ones where the poet resides in the banyan tree that was considered pious by the grandmother was struck down. So everything is being chopped off. The tree were also chopped down in the process. Several of the trees there were considered sacred ones and had medicinal values were also uprooted and chopped away. The banyan tree, however, posed a problem since it was enormous and had strong roots. We all know the size of a banyan tree, how big it can be, how big it can grow. Like we see it everywhere in India especially, and we consider banyan tree as a sacred tree. We see it in most of the temples and in most of the religious places, and you know how big it can be. And cutting off such an enormous tree is definitely going to be a problem, and the writer's family had faced it because they wanted the tree to be removed, but it was very difficult for them. The birds and the insects. The poet's father still gave the order to cut down the tree. The banyan tree was so big that it was almost thrice the size of the poet's residence. So the house is small and the tree is very big. They started the process of chopping down the tree by shedding off the branches. The birds and the insects were rendered homeless and they flew away at once. 50 men together put an effort to chop the tree down that exposed the trunk. It showed that the tree was around 200 years. So this can be calculated with the circumference of the tree. Like when you chop off a tree, the rings that are there in the circumference of the tree with which we can identify the actual age of the tree, and see looking at the size of the banyan tree, we can very well confirm that it has to be a very old tree. This is summary. We'll get into the detailing during the analysis of the poem. Soon after, the poet along with his family shifts to Mumbai, where they could not see a lot of trees. He could see trees in his dreams growing forth and touching the grounds to turn into concrete buildings. So cutting down a tree, especially in today's modern world, is something that's not very new. So when you read it as a poem, you kind of understand how it is happening, and it is even more severe to think about it. We can understand how terrible it can be to cut down the tree, because it's a home for lots more living beings. Now getting into the analysis, the banyan tree is the metaphor for the poet's life, for the family's upheaval. The man responsible for the move is none other than the father, representing all that is masculine, dominant, forward-looking and destructive. Very often something that is very pleasant, especially when it comes to nature, we often associate it with femininity. Okay, so when a man is asking someone to cut down the tree, it can there's a detail of a patriarchy there. Okay, a man cutting down a tree, which is usually associated with femininity. Sorry. So the banyan tree can be considered as a metaphor for the poet's life. Patriarchal versus matriarchal theme is central to the poem. The tree were considered to be sacred by the poet's grandmother. We saw that already. It's there in our Indian culture. See, nature is very close to any culture for that matter, not only Indian culture, it's very closer to anybody's culture. The environment decides what type of culture the people will practice. That's how it works always. So the nature around a habitat is very important. So the poet thoroughly criticizes this vicious act of felling trees and harming nature. This is very important. Harming nature. Okay, like how can we human beings harm nature? So that is what ego criticism is all about, like a representation of things like this. Why should we harm nature? Who are we to harm nature? So those kind of things will be presented when we get into this ego-critical study of the same poem. The poet mourns the death of the nature by his father's evil hands. The poem is a subtle mockery of the people who torture the environment for worldly pleasures. There is a limit for everything. We cannot completely say that we should not disturb nature and we cannot live a life like that. Definitely we can't do that, because we are dependent on nature and nature does not depend on us, and we have to understand nature will grow by itself. When I went for a lecture somewhere, I remember a resource person, he said, can the nature live without us? Definitely it can live. It can live even more in a better way. That's what he said, and that's very true. We are not dependent upon, we are dependent upon nature, but nature is never dependent upon us. It can be very good by itself. So we have to understand our place, and we should not think that nature is always a provider and we are always the receiver. That's it's a very wrong idea, and that's what ego-critical writers, they always discuss about. And so the poet is deeply hurt at the banyan tree's bereavement that was home to many birds and insects and provides shade to the poet's family for so many years. Just now I said, this world is not just for human beings alone. There are other creatures apart from human beings, and this world, this earth, whatever we have in this earth, it is for everybody. We don't have a planet B like everyone says. Still discoveries are, the study is being made. They speak about having another planet, studies are being made, but still now we don't have any proper solid evidence on this. So this is the only planet left, there is no planet B. So we have to take very good care of each other. Like that kind of an association is very important, and that's what most of the eco-critical writers, they stress upon. And then he treated the tree as a family member. The poem is an excellent take on environmental issues that can have adverse effects on many lives. So this is the analysis part of the poem, and now moving on to eco-criticism. So what is eco-criticism? I would like to answer these 4 questions in order to give a good picture of what eco-criticism is, what it is. So it is a critical approach to literature and culture that focuses on the relationship between human beings and the natural world. So what it is, as we just saw, I just want to explain it in more detail when we come to the why. So when it emerged in the 1990s, and these are the important people who are known for this eco-critical, who are known for this eco-criticism, in eco-criticism. So, and then why? As a response to growing concerns about environmental degradation. One might think like literature, what it has to do with environment. No, obviously we are writers, we have to think only about writing about the poems, writing about nature. Why should we be concerned about environment? That's a very good question. But then it's our responsibility. Literature is nothing but a reflection of life. Okay, if life is not good, the reflection would be even more devastating. So we have to think about it before think about it before everything goes out of hand. So as a literary person, as a literature one who is in the field of literature, we are also important here. Like we have some duties to take care of the nature, which is very, very significant here. So that is why this environmental, like eco-criticism, came into existence, and studying text through eco-critical eye became very important, especially in recent days. Earlier it was called green studies. Even now some places they are calling it green studies. And this is eco-criticism. And now eco-critical elements. So what do they discuss actually? What do eco-critics talk about that should be seen now, so that we can understand the text Felling of the Tree in a better way? After going through the eco-critical elements, we will see whether these elements were able to find it in the text of Dilip Chitre. Okay. So interconnections between nature and culture. Obviously just now I said culture and nature are definitely interconnected. Based upon the natural environment only, the culture will start to grow. So it is very important, and whenever a eco-critic looks at a text, he will look at it how the writer has connected nature and culture. So that will be there. So we will just see if it is present in our text. And then the importance of environmental justice. Of course, what is justice? Like everything being right. So environmental justice, there has to be some justice. We cannot go on exploit nature and say it is for us. It is definitely not only for us. That we have to understand. And ways in which environmental issues and concerns affect marginalized communities. Yes, of course, marginalized communities are very closer to the nature, more than the people who are living in the city and having a good life. Like they are very closer to the rural community, let us say. They are very closer to their nature, and how the decisions that the people who are sitting in the city they are making, like how things like that are affecting people who are sitting in a rural, in some corner, working hard in the field, how it is affecting their life. All these things are discussed and in eco-criticism. That is a whole new perspective of seeing things. And then literature is a tool to promote social and environmental justice. Of course, I said already, literature is a reflection of life, and we cannot just look at things and pass like that. We have some duty as a literature person. It's not only a work of the NGO or some government, or it's not like that. A pen is mightier than sword, we all know that. So even with a pen we can change everything. So we have some duty here. So it can be used as a tool to promote social and environmental justice. So importance of interdisciplinary approach, drawing on fields such as biology, ecology. This is a way of looking, like we can connect literature and environment with all these things, and a whole new study. There's a possibility of having a whole new study. So this is about the eco-critical element. These are the eco-critical elements. Now we'll jump into the next slide. Felling of a Tree as an eco-critical poem. It definitely discusses environmental issue of cutting down a tree. Yes, it is. What is the environmental issue here? Cutting down a tree. It is a home for many creatures, many birds, and many other small animals, and it is definitely an environmental issue. Sheds light on the interconnect. So let us think about it. Cutting down a tree, yes, definitely. If it is like a hindrance, like you need a home for someone, and if there is a necessity of cutting down, if there is a necessity, like you have to cut down a tree, so what do we do? No, population is on the rise, so what do we do? So we can think about either two things. Either you can have a new tree somewhere, like plant a sapling of the same tree or somewhere, replacing, okay, that is very important. Replacing, if you cut down a tree, you should remember to replace it with another tree. That is one way. or these days you have a practice of uprooting the tree and planting it somewhere else, because it's banyan tree, maybe it is a little difficult, but still it could be done. And then sheds light on the interconnectedness of life on earth. Yes, like I already said, everything is interconnected in this world. I am interconnected to the tree is interconnected with me. The root of a tree is very important, like my roots, like the human being's roots, like how a human being's root is very important, the same way, like that, like, sorry, I have to say it to the other side, like how root is important for a tree, the same way my root is important for me. So that is interconnectedness of life on earth. And importance of protecting nature. Yes, I said already a few slides back, I said you need not protect, like it does not depend upon you. It does not definitely depend upon you, but does not mean that you cannot go, you can go and exploit resources like that. You have to protect nature. Yes, if there is a need, if there is a compulsion, if that's the only choice, you can go for it, but there should be a replacement always. That should always be in everybody's mind. So importance of protecting nature. The nature does not mean trees alone. Everything that we see, like littering the places, just like that we throw a paper and then we wasting water, all this thing, everything is important here. Okay, nature does not mean trees alone. And then cultural significance of roots. There is a place where the grandmother, she is against cutting down the tree because she understands the importance of nature. Okay, for them it is like a sacred, like I already said, a banyan tree is found in many of the religious spaces in a country especially, and many places they worship it as a god itself. That much important a banyan tree. So definitely it has cultural significance. And duty to protect nature, we already saw. We have a duty to protect nature. And in this poem also you see that the writer, he is devastated by the idea of his father cutting down a tree. Okay, so he is not able to protect it at that point of time, but he is really feeling bad about it. And then tree as a symbol of life on earth. As a symbol of life on earth. Yes, like I just now said, roots. Okay, like it represents us. Trees as a symbol of strength, individuality, expression, calmness, growth, and the interconnectedness of everything. And banyan tree is a symbol of sacred serenity and spiritual significance. It has spiritual significance. In the Hindu religion, it represents longevity and immortality. The tree is thought to grant all wishes and provide material gains to its followers. It is often planted near temples and crematories because of its significance in the religion. So this is the importance of banyan tree. And when writing about this felling of a tree, the writer, he has taken up his duty of protecting nature. He has understood his responsibility and he has done the work, and we are looking at the poem in a eco-critical perspective. So this is felling of a tree as a eco-critical poem. And then similar works. So these are some works very similar to this on a tree. Like if you are interested, you can go and read. On Killing a Tree, Jeev Patel, and Trees by Joyce Kilmer, The Sound of the Tree by Robert Frost, Loveliest of Trees by A. E. Housman, Under the Greenwood Tree by William Shakespeare, A Poison Tree by William Blake. These are some poems, but there are many to the list. So with that, I would like to conclude. Thank you all.